Hello, Team Basecamp. Hey, Coach Tim here with a review of yesterday's Vo2max micro interval 40/20s. I'm going to review Harry here because there's really something I want to cover. People, yesterday there was some posts about only having heart rate and how it's hard to tell what you're doing and stuff like that. And that's true, right? Power is a quantifiable measurement that really allows us to track micro changes. But I do know of the people that were posting that you have some indoor power and you have, heart rate when you're training outside. So let's take a look at Harry's workout. I can see he turned it green. I can see he had 84 heart rate TSS. When I click in, the workout was targeted at 87 TSS. He had 84 heart rate TSS. You'll only see it use heart rate TSS when power is not available and heart rate is available. So I already know I'm not going to see power. So I'm going to go into Analyze, and I can see some data here. The gray is the elevation or the terrain, the elevation change. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide that. Now I can see the blue here is the temperatures. That's not going to tell me too much. I do always look at temperature just to see if that impacts heart rate. And it was high enough to have a small impact, but probably pretty normal right now. So I'm going to hide that. And now I can see cadence and heart rate. Now remember, the workout as prescribed, he didn't flip this workout into heart rate. He just read it and knew what he was going to do. Was 6 minutes of 40/20 efforts repeated 4 times. And you could actually see them. Here's 1. Here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4 with a little bit of a break up there. So I can see 40, 20, 40, 20, 40, 20, right? And that is the expectation we have of the way your heart rate should respond. I'm actually happy to see that it goes down in between. That's the heart rate recovery I've talked about in these workouts that we're looking for. So he's actually having heart rate recovery, which is good. It shows that his aerobic fitness and he's dealing with lactate pretty well. So now I'm just going to drag over those 4 intervals. And yes, we're eyeballing it. I could also see it in his cadence. His cadence was high in the first 3, but you can see here he was struggling on the 4th one, right? I always can see when the cadence starts to drop, that tends to tell us we're struggling. So I'm going to look his heart rate here, right? And I'm going to write this down with my little pen here, was 144 beats per minute. Now you're right, I can't see did he do more power, how much power did he do, but I can compare that against previous workouts. And the challenge is I wouldn't expect heart rate to change, meaning at threshold, your max heart rate barely changes. It changes about a beat a year. Your threshold heart rate barely changes. Even with extensive training, it might, change a little bit. It depends if you're just starting training or if you've been training for years. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. We've done this workout twice before, and I was tempted to compare it in power. I'll let you compare power, but I'm going to look at Harry's heart rate performance here. I'm going to go all the way back to week 2 when he did 3 of these intervals, turned it green. Now here he was supposed to get 82 TSS. He got 104 TSS. So he has power here. So I'm going to click on Analyze, and I can quickly see how neat and clean things are. He did this on the trainer with power. So I can, just double checking, I would tend to look at the workout itself to see if he did it indoors. He doesn't have a map loaded on the screen right at the moment, but I know it's indoors and I'm sure. So the reality is he's not doing it in erg mode, which is great, but he is doing it indoors and he's nailing it. So what can I look at? Well, he has watts here. So let's show beats. I'm seeing that same view. You notice how it's a little more steady because he's not dealing with terrain, right? He's just knocking this out on the trainer. But if I drag across this and just kind of get that sort of lined up, I see his heart rate was 137. I missed a little of that last peak, actually. Let me see if I can grab that a little better. Whatever. It's still 137. So we're going to use 137 beats per minute. So when I compare, remember, when we're looking at power, the pink line, power, right, that is the external stress that we're placing on the system, Harry being the system in this case, that's the external stress. That's a quantifiable external, right, measurement. Stress doesn't lead directly to adaptation. Heart rate is the responding strain the system is going under when I apply this stress. So his strain is, we're seeing in the red line. Strain does lead directly to adaptation. The stress is just the external load we put on the system to trigger the cycle of strain and adaptation, right? So remember, when I drag over his heart rate for this time, I get, that time I got 138. I started late. I need to start at the beginning. You get it. It's 137. So I get 137 beats per minute for 1, 2, 3 intervals. So the strain that he's going is 137 beats as an average across those intervals. Now let's go back to the workout he just did and analyze. I'm just going to look at heart rate because it's basically what I have. And if I drag over, I'll start here. It looks like he actually started a little earlier, but let's start. This is where the workout started. And I'll even count this kind of up and down effort of the last one. And I can see his heart rate is a 144 beats. So here's what I do know, right? He was 7 beats higher. He was 7 beats higher during, I need to click on that. He was 7 beats higher during that time frame. And that time frame was longer. I should have wrote down the time, right? He did one more additional interval. So the reality is with that in the break, it was 10 more minutes of strain. So whereas in, I can't measure his actual performance, like, wow, he went 5 more watts, or he did the work. And the work was higher strain on the system, which will result in better adaptation. So for those that, it's hard to track, and the post of yesterday, if it's hard to track without power, that's true. Power is a superior training system. I cannot deny that. That doesn't mean you have to invest in a power meter, and it doesn't mean that using some of the data that you have cannot be utilized to see the big picture. Because 2 things happened here for Harry. One, the numbers got better, right? He applied more strain, or he underwent more strain. So I know he applied more stress. I mean, think about what I just said. He underwent more strain, so I know he applied more stress. And the reality is that strain being significantly larger, it was 10 minutes longer and 7 beats higher. Whereas, and I can't quantify it as well, I know he will be faster down the road. I know his fitness is evolving and growing because he was able to introduce the higher strain. So there are ways that we can use data in the absence of power to figure things out. And if you don't have power and everything, use what you have, right? But also don't trust your feelings. You could have done the same workout on rate of perceived exertion. And if you got to that extra interval and you did that one more, it will pay off downstream. Yeah, maybe you can't micro quantify it in this moment, but in the end stream, it's not the quantification that will matter. It's your ability to do the work. Because if you do the work, implement the stress, your body goes under the strain, you will adapt. And that adaptation is you get faster. Thanks, everybody.